Welcome to the Courageous Caribbean Woman podcast. I'm your host, Fralene Wilkins. Join me in this interview with a fellow Caribbean woman as we motivate and inspire you to unleash your own courage. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Courageous Caribbean Woman podcast. Today, I am joined by Dr. Sharna Henry Joseph. She's from the beautiful island of St. Lucia. She's a medical doctor and has been for the past 5 years. She's a content creator and also runs a business alongside her husband. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Yay.
Yes. Good stuff. So, almost a year ago, you made this post on LinkedIn. I want you to tell me if you remember it, right? May 1st, 2022, 1 year ago, I moved to a new hospital as a general practitioner or house officer. It was mainly because I needed a better work-life balance, and I think I got that. Sometimes you just have to make the move that's best for you. Hashtag work-life balance, hashtag hospital. Now, building a good work-life balance is exactly the reason why I brought you to talk today, right? I know you have a few things on your plate, and I just observe from a distance, right? And so I figure, hey, you'd be a great person to talk to about this topic. But of course, before we go into that, I usually like to ask 5 of my favorite questions so that our listeners can get to know you better, right? So would you describe yourself as an introvert or an extrovert?
I think I'm just like you when you say I watched some of your interviews before you
Okay.
say, it was kind of both depending on the time and the situation. I grew up, I think, as an introvert, and I
Mhm.
labeled myself as such for a long time. But then I think it was in medical school where I realized I'm really not that much of an introvert as I thought. I
Okay.
like to talk to people, and of course, in interacting with patients and so on, you kind of have to get out of that
Yeah.
introvertness to do your
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
basically. So
Hmm.
I could be both, but I think I'm more now of an extrovert than I was growing up. Yes.
Right. I get you. And again, common response. And I think because maybe a better understanding of introversion is probably you starting to realize that as you get older, not necessarily that you don't like people,
Yeah.
right? But it's just like, I do need that time away sometimes to get re-energized and all of that. Okay, good. What do you enjoy doing in your downtime?
I love going to the beach. That's
Mm-hmm.
my favorite place to be. I used to enjoy reading a long time ago, but that has since changed since going to school for so many years. You
Yeah,
lose the passion.
yeah.
But now I do enjoy audiobooks quite a bit. Um,
Excellent.
a lot of times I listen to audiobooks rather than listen to music on my way to work and from work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like watching TV shows, especially things like Grey's Anatomy. I know a lot of people are into these kinds of shows.
Yeah.
And on my downtime, which I don't have plenty of, but I do have some,
Mm-hmm.
we go to the farm and we get things sorted out there.
Good. Excellent. Good stuff. And we'll hear more about that. As we continue our conversation, how many siblings do you have?
I have
And you
two
have,
siblings, two
yes.
sisters, one
Mm-hmm.
older, one younger, and the middle child.
Okay. What is that like?
What's that like? I don't think it's any either because they have middle child syndrome and all that. I
Yeah.
don't think that exists in our family dynamic.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think all of us got a fair amount of attention. I think the
Mm-hmm.
youngest actually got the most attention as expected.
Right.
Very, and there's a big age gap between us. I think it's about 8 years between me and her, and
Mm,
about a year and a half between me and my older sister. So we grew up almost like twins, and
right.
then large gap, and then there was my little sister.
Right.
But
So you were kind of like the Lasha for a while.
for a while.
Yeah. For a while. So maybe that's why it's just like not truly this kind of like middle child syndrome
Yeah.
vibe. Okay. I get that. Okay. And what would you say you love most about your job?
What I love most about my job, I know it's very cliche for physicians to say, but interacting with the people, for
Mm-hmm.
the most part, we those, these and those that are not very pleasant. But for the most part,
Mm.
interacting with people, hearing, sometimes they come for something and then they end up telling you a lot of their personal information and so on. And you can see like, yes, they came for a physical issue, but then they
Right.
offload some stuff on you, and then
Right.
you end up like being almost like a counselor in a sense,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in addition to helping them with their physical issues. So I quite enjoy that part. Like they actually trust you with all of that private information,
Yes.
and yeah, it's a really interesting and fun job.
Lovely. I love that. And yes, I understand that whole dynamic of people trusting you with that information and being able to be helpful is always great. Okay. All right. So take us back to the beginning on what, led you to become a doctor.
Okay, so well, let me just backtrack on my journey to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the Labby SDA Primary School here in St. Lucia. Then I went to the SDA Academy, which is the Seventh Day Adventist Academy. And then I took a gap year between that and university because I knew I wanted to go to medical school, but I did not know what that path would look like in
Okay.
terms of where I would go to university and then transition into medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So the gap year, in the gap year, I had some family, well, I do have some family in the States. So I was looking at trying to get into university there and then from there integrating into medical school somehow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I knew some of my classmates from the academy who did go to medical school. Sorry, to university
Right.
in at USC in Trinidad. So
Okay.
I spoke to some of them and asked them how it was and what do I need to, get into that and so on. And they told me, I told my parents about it. And then we all decided that, okay, after a good back and forth of talking and so on, that would be the next best thing for me. So I went to university there in Trinidad at USC for
Mm-hmm.
about 4.5 years. So I met
Right.
Fralene. We
Yes.
crossed paths there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, in my last year, I had a cousin who did go to Taiwan for a scholarship and so on. So he was
Okay.
already there. And he
Mm.
informed me about the scholarship program that they do have medical programs there. And then I looked into it and I actually saw some people I knew from secondary school who were ahead of me. They went
Right.
to school there and then I took the application, sorted that out, and then got accepted. Then I went there and then that's how we're here now.
Good. So right, so you had the journey in St. Lucia, went to university first in Trinidad to do undergrad in
Yes,
biology,
biology, yes.
right? And then over to medical school in Taiwan. And then of course coming back to St. Lucia for internship, right? And then well, according to that post, you then eventually you made the move to go to another hospital. Um now I actually know, well, because I know you and I know some other information. One of the things that, well, the first sort of load, I guess I would say, medical school alone in itself is quite intense, yes. But I also know that while you were there, you, well, actually, I don't know. Did you start your relationship while you were still in school or at the end of it?
Okay, yes. So actually, um, well, if we're getting a bit personal, I did
Yeah,
go into medical school already in a relationship, but that
right.
ended at the beginning of my second year of medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was single in for about a year plus, and then in my last year of medical school, I met my now husband.
Right.
Um, he is a Saint Lucian, so yay. Um,
Yes.
I just randomly messaged him one day because in when you're in a different country and there are other people
Right.
around, you end up adding people on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
even though you don't talk to them that
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
You have a little community and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I saw him pop up, when you open the chat and they have the little bubbles on the top and
Right.
telling you online and so on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what came over me. This is not something I usually do. I just clicked on the little bubble and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And then from that day, we've never stopped talking since. So yeah, that's how we met. We met in my last year.
Right.
And given my previous history of long distance, I did
Mm-hmm.
say I did not want to, venture back into that. But
Right.
then that's exactly what ended up happening because then I
Yeah.
had to leave. I had to stay to continue his degree, and then we met when he was done.
Right.
Well,
Good.
actually, we met I think twice in between, and
Mm-hmm.
then finally he
After
came.
he Good.
Yes.
Right. And so that is the first sort of like, hey, you're trying to balance. Well, at that point, you would have been doing your internship, which again is very much time consuming. It's really intense. My understanding is that internship is really a make or break you kind of experience, kind of experience. And so how did you even balance being a long distance relationship and not just a long distance relationship, but one with such a huge time difference?
Okay, so first of all, yes, internship. I think I can safely say, I mean, I'm not knocking anybody or anybody's experience, but it
Mm-hmm.
has been sort of one of the most difficult experiences outside of medical school
Yeah.
because you come out of school where you're learning about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're just thrown in there and they expect a lot from you, which rightly so. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you're still learning. You don't know the ropes of the specific hospital that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are not very nice to you in terms of your seniors, but most of them are. And
You're
so
right.
you balance a lot of just a lot.
Yes.
And actually, the time difference between Taiwan and St. Lucia is 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it, in a way, it was beneficial to us because we ended up having communication twice a day. So let's say I wake up at 6 a.m., he's already
Mm-hmm.
done school by 6 p.m. So we
Right.
can talk for about an hour while I get ready and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
then throughout the day, if he's up late or studying or something like that, he would text me and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go to bed, maybe about if I'm on call and I go to bed, take a nap for about, let's say, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., he's already up and getting
Yeah.
ready to go to school by that time. So we get
Mm.
another hour to talk. So it was actually beneficial for us. And we got to speak more than I thought we did. And I
Right.
think we communicated more than people who were in person with their relationships, which is right. So that helped a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Then the pandemic came. So the long distance was even longer than we wanted. We didn't get to visit as often and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up having to be creative about the distance,
Right.
creative date nights, and being intentional about when we're doing what and planning to meet the next time, just to have some hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And sort of to have it work.
Yes,
Right.
and not
Because
be bored, basically,
say that again.
and to not be like bored of the
Mm.
the video calls every time it's the same thing. We kind of spiced it up, cooking, doing different painting and different things. So yeah, that's how we kept up with that during that time.
Good. And that's great because I mean, earlier in the conversation, you said you actually started your experience in medical school in a relationships, and that was long distance. So from well, you had two experiences basically.
Yeah.
What did you do to get it to work? For our listeners who might be in a long distance relationship and they're trying to get it to work, what was
Mhm.
different?
I think maturity is one,
Mm-hmm.
being realistic with your goals and expectations, and both parties need to want the same thing, basically. So when we had our first date, when he went back home, we both sat and we were like, whoa, like, okay, so this is something. And in a sense, we knew we wanted to be together immediately.
Right.
But then I was like, are you sure? Because I'm going to go away and
Mm-hmm.
like having a mature and real conversation about it. And we were like, okay, we just decided, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to try. I said, I'm not going to do it again, but it whatever it is that was happening seemed like it was worth it.
Right.
because we were both mature adults
Mm-hmm.
having serious conversations. There was no games, there was
Mm-hmm.
no mental gymnastic as to does he really want to, or no,
Right.
it's very clear from the
Good.
beginning. The
Yeah.
clarity helped a lot.
Love.
And just deciding that, okay, this is really what we're going to do, and we're going to try to the best of our ability, and having those serious conversations very often, I think that helped a lot.
Okay, good stuff. So, being clear, I really like that.
Very,
No,
very.
no mind games or mind reading or all of that. Just being clear and intentional about the relationship. Okay, excellent. And so now let's go back now to that post that you made
Mhm.
about, striving for that work-life balance. What was happening in your life around that time that made you think, okay, it's time for me to strike and work-life balance?
All right, so immediately after internship, actually during internship, I started internship from August, no, September 2020 2019
Mhm.
into 2020. So we all know what happened in 2020.
Yes.
The 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 panorama,
Yes. Our life turned upside down.
right?
Yeah.
So all of this time I'm learning new things, and we're trying to balance the pandemic and everything like that. So after being an intern, we had a few months break, and then we got into being house officers.
Yeah.
So I was placed. Um, at that time, it wasn't clear where we were placed
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't know if they wanted us working with the respiratory hospital, which was now the respiratory hospital. It used to
Okay.
be our public hospital, but they shifted us to the new hospital. Now the
Mm-hmm.
old hospital became the respiratory hospital. So they did not know where they wanted to place us. Initially, I was put into the internal medicine team, but that didn't
Okay.
last long. They took a bunch of us and told us, okay, so some of you are going here, some of you are going here. Then we did that for a few, maybe not even 2 months. And then some of us were placed in the respiratory hospital, some of us were placed elsewhere. So after all of that, then we were reintegrated. About maybe 6 months of that, we were reintegrated into the public hospital.
Okay.
So I was placed in the emergency department, where
Mm.
I have been since, and I really,
Okay.
really, really like it there.
Okay.
With the public system, it's sad to say that the patient to physician ratio is very, very off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's across the board worldwide,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you do the best you can as a singular individual. There
Mm-hmm.
are a few of you on shift at one time. So sometimes it gets very overwhelming with there are a lot of patients outside waiting to be seen for like 12 hours plus. But if um if a major emergency comes, like an accident, you have to put everybody else on pause, focus on that, and then continue doing what you're doing and so on. So, I mean, it's good exposure for a physician,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it can get very tiring.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's something that can be dealt with the higher ups because I'm sure they all know about this, right? But
Yeah.
anyway, we're on the ground, so we're doing all of the work and so on and so forth. So at the point in time where I transitioned into the other hospital, I don't think I was burnt out, but I was beginning to be have a lot of defensiveness in terms of like
Okay.
when a patient or patient's family comes at me, usually I try to diffuse the situation like calmly and professionally, but I was starting to get a little bit rude.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to lie. Every once in
Yeah.
a while, I would tell them, hey, no, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which I'm not usually like that most times. So
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I was changing little by little. And then the opportunity came for me to apply to the other hospital, which is a private hospital. So I applied and then I got interviewed. And actually, myself and a colleague of mine from the public hospital, we both interviewed, I think, around the same time. And we both got the positions. So we're both now emergency physicians over there.
Okay.
Um, what was different about that hospital is the load is not as much. There are days where it's for one physician to the patients. It is a lot. The workload is a lot,
Mhm.
but comparing the two, it's less. You can see it's less.
Right.
And the shifts there on my previous job was 8 hours and more times in the day, more days in the week where you work. But where I am now, it's 12-hour shifts, but you work less days during the week, basically. So
Okay.
that helped a lot. I mean, yes, you get tired and so on, but I felt less burnt out. I had more days in the week to do my business. I go to the bank,
Mm-hmm.
my chore, not my chores, my errands, do
Mm-hmm.
things outside of hospital work, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that was a good decision made for my work-life balance. As you see, I have
Right.
more time now to do things outside of work, which is where like the content creation and so on comes in.
Mm-hmm.
I choose a day in the week where I'm not working and I film probably 2 videos in a day and
Mm-hmm.
schedule the upload and so on so I can have more consistency.
Excellent. So there are a few things there that I absolutely love, right? One, the awareness, right? You were able to notice I'm starting to see that shift in my behavior, right? And you didn't have to try to deny it or even think, oh, this is just how it is sometimes. Like you didn't have to
Yeah.
excuse it, but rather you said, actually, something is going on here with me. What is it? And then you
Mhm.
recognize I need to make an adjustment in terms of this workload or my work-life balance, right? So that's fantastic. And as well, you had the courage to go out and apply for this other position, right? Because that would have been a change, yes, which
Yeah.
is also like stressful. It's like if you're already feeling stressed and then now thinking, hey, let me go out and make this other change, that's a whole other stressful situation. But you decided, you know what, I'll just go and do it.
Well, actually, that's an interesting thing that you picked up because I did feel I had second thoughts about it
Mhm.
because it is a change. All my
Mhm.
colleagues are there. We're all in the trenches together.
Right.
My husband was actually very instrumental in that decision making. We spoke about it, and he was like, "Why not? Like,
Mhm.
apart from your colleagues, why not? Why not
Right.
apply?" And
Mhm.
I had no reason why I shouldn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did go ahead and do that.
Good. Yeah. And I get it. Sometimes taking that path that's less traveled, or if you feel like, oh, I'm leaving this set of people behind to go and do this thing on my own, it's uncomfortable, right? But it's good that you're saying, hey, your husband was instrumental in even helping you to go ahead and make that decision. And so I kind of also want to bring in now the conversation around your husband, right? Because I know you work with your husband. I also work with my husband, right? And there are sometimes some things that people would say, right? In terms of working with not just your spouse, but also just family in general, right? It can't work and there's certain hiccups and so on. Um, I want you to tell me, first off, what made you decide that this is something you want to get into business with your husband? And also, what's some advice that you have for people who working with family?
Okay, so basically, for those who don't know,
Mm-hmm.
my husband, his brother, and we do own a hydroponic farm, which we're trying to expand, as time goes along. So that is the nature of our business, our side business. And we're relatively new, up and coming, I would say. We're not as successful as we would like to be as yet, but
Mm-hmm.
it's what occupies a lot of our time. Um, what advice I would give to people working with family? It depends,
Mm-hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
So what's okay? Well, the first question was what made me decide to go along with the plans and so on. Well, it is a plan that he has had personally for since I met him. He's been talking
Okay.
about that farm. He
Okay.
did study environmental engineering as his degree. So of course he's into like green and eco sustainability and so on. So it's a thing that I've heard about for like 4 years prior to
Right.
starting. So it
Yeah.
wasn't a new idea. But then when
Good.
he graduated, he came down and we were figuring out, okay, what are we going to do next? Or how are we going to start that? I actually really, really saw his drive and you know, he's somebody, once he has an idea, nothing can stop it.
Right.
And I think that's a great attribute that he has. So, in doing the research and so on, I realized that hey, this is a very interesting and it has the potential to be a very successful business. So we invested in the starting materials ourselves, and then eventually we applied for a grant from the government and so on. So that's the phase we're in now. Um, and seeing his drive and so on helped me get more interest in that idea, and then
Okay.
we started doing certain research and so on together. So that's how I actually got into it. And
Mhm.
advice I would give family members who work with family: first of all, what is the intention of your family member who is going into business with you? um, do you notice part of their personal life that doesn't align with what they're saying? They'll help you and so on, but then the lifestyle they're living doesn't reflect as such. They're very inconsistent.
Mhm.
They come sometimes, they don't come. You can tell basically if somebody's interested in the ideas
Mhm.
that you have.
Mhm.
So I think we have to look past the fact that yeah, you're trying to help your family, but are they trying to help the business? Are they trying to help you in return? So that's something we need to like remove our the love that we have so much for our family and actually go into reality and be like,
Yeah.
hey, will this person be a benefit to the business? Will they be a
Mhm.
liability? Do they seem consistent in like their personal life or other aspects of their lives? Do they uh, hop from job to job? They're not consistent in their professional life either. How do they
Right.
manage their finances? There's a lot of things to consider when we're inviting family into our business life. So I think for my husband and my brother-in-law, we're basically on the same page. We have the same end goals. We have the same vision for the farm and where we want it to go. And my husband, he constantly thinks of new ideas on how to implement things. And we discuss a lot of things all the time about the business. So I
Mhm.
think being on the same page in general and all of the things I mentioned prior will help a lot in weeding out who is really for you and for your business.
Right. Absolutely lovely. And again, tying that back to awareness again, because you're saying, hey, this is something that came up in those conversations. You mentioned that you used to talk quite a bit. And so you would have talked about the dreams that you had, right? And so because that happened upfront, I guess the buy-in on your end wasn't so huge, right? Because it's
No,
like,
yeah,
hey, this is something that you want, right? And you already
yeah,
know. And then as well, you're saying, look at the person's behavior or their character and ask yourself, can I really go in business with this person? Make it practical as opposed to, like you said, just being blinded by the fact that this is a family member that you're working with, which is, I mean, that makes complete sense to
yeah.
me. So, so wonderful. Good. And so we mentioned already that you do content creation as well, with your YouTube channel, which is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, some might question or be like, hey, how is it that you make time for a YouTube channel as a professional yourself, a doctor, and a business owner, right? To add that on top of it, why did you decide to that? And how do you even decide what needs to stay in terms of when you were restructuring and seeking out that work-life balance? How did you decide, hey, I want to keep this needs to go, or this other thing needs to be adjusted?
Okay, so actually, I have been interested in content creation
Right.
of some sort since 2010, 2011, when I first did my big job. That's
Right.
when I, yes, was it that time? Yes, around that time when I did my
Mm-hmm.
first big job, I just
Mm-hmm.
entered university and so on. But you know, it wasn't very common back then. So I actually did a slideshow, I believe, of my hair and my big chop and so on. I uploaded it, and I think on the same day I took it down because like that was so embarrassing. Like, who's going to watch that? Like, what am I doing?
You're right.
And I really regret that because I don't even have
Yeah.
it now, and I can't look back.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I deleted it and I didn't upload. I think until I went to Taiwan, where I
Right.
did like mini tour from St. Lucia to Taiwan and so on. So I've
Mm-hmm.
always been loosely interested in like video creation specifically.
Yeah.
I was not consistent until I would say between last year and this year. And how I make, well, last year I did start here and there and try to create a schedule, but it wasn't as tight as it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the new year, I decided to actually like commit to the channel because it's just something I like. I don't know why. Again,
Yeah.
with medicine, I don't know why I wanted to go into that, but I wanted to, and I
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
So same with the content creation. I just enjoy sharing certain aspects. I love watching YouTube anyway
Mm-hmm.
and seeing other people like just being fearless and not caring what other people think and just doing your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, hey, and with that, a lot of solutions actually that I know are into that kind of content creation and digital work. So it gave me a boost like of comfort to know that hey, it's actually not as rare as it used to be. People are
Mm-hmm.
actually very much more into it now. So that gave me the push I needed to, really be consistent and so on. So how I make time for that is being intentional, firstly, and I try to make content about things that I do anyway, in terms of if I have to cook something, I have to cook anyway, so why not make
Yep.
a video about it? If I
Mm-hmm.
have to run some errands, let's make a vlog about it. So I try not to do too many things that are outside of my regular schedule. It
Mm-hmm.
makes it easier to incorporate that into a video. And for my sit down ones, I say, okay, so I'm off maybe on Thursday. So I
Right.
will use the early morning time, maybe between 8, 9, 10, to sit down, get myself ready, pick out something to wear, and then sit down and talk about. And I make like a loose script sometimes. I don't usually go by the script, but at least I have an idea of what I want to talk about. Then I go ahead, I shoot it. Sometimes on that same day, if I'm off, I shoot something else. So I have two videos for 2 weeks now.
Right.
So I try to batch film sometimes to just get the content out that I want to get out in a timely manner. So I try to upload every Saturday at noon. So right now I have this Saturday's video already ready, next Saturday's video already scheduled and uploaded,
Mm-hmm.
and the next Saturday's video already uploaded and scheduled. So I have
Mm.
basically 2 to 3 weeks in advance.
Right.
Um, so that's how I kind of create the time to make the content by implementing my real life in there and then doing some formal ones here and there.
Yeah. I um love this, right? Because going back, well, it shows, hey, that hesitation even at the beginning it was like, oh, I
Mhm.
uploaded this thing and then I was just like, I took that down, right?
Yeah.
And and it's good that you're able to share that as well because somebody could be listening and they think they might have done the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Or they think that they need to feel 100% sure about it or 100% confident before they actually take the action, right?
Mhm.
But now they realize, hey, this person who's doing this, they had similar feelings, right? And they just kind of work through it. And as well, you mentioned seeing other people, knowing that you're not the only was also some good motivation as well. So community, I guess,
Yes.
recognizing like there's a community and the importance of that and how that helps you to go further, right? When you know that other people are involved and stuff like that. Now, I think it's important to develop other areas of your life. So I really admire the fact that you do content creation. And before you were saying you don't really know why you
Yeah.
went you do content creation and stuff. And honestly, sometimes I think people maybe people try to find this big deep reason, but it's just no, I just was interested in it and I just did it. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like
I
and
think
that
same
is
for you.
okay. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, I'm interested in this thing and I'll just give it a shot. Right. So that's good. And so the importance of developing those other areas of your life, right? I want you to tell me what you notice in terms of your life and how developing those other areas outside of your profession, what does that do for you?
Okay, interesting question. Not a question you get very often.
Yeah.
Hmm. I think the work-life balance conversation comes into
Mm-hmm.
play here a lot because I'm somebody, after I leave work, I am off. I don't think about work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about, well, I talk about work sometimes immediately after the shift, but after that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about work. I don't, I'm just off of work.
Yeah.
So I think that's the number one thing that helps me in terms of like pursuing other things. When I'm done with work, I'm done.
Yeah.
Now my other brain switched on.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to be more creative sometimes, which is where the content creation comes in. I think that I've always been a creative person, like the way my mind works. If I
Mm-hmm.
have a concept for a video, I already know how I want it to go. I know the style of video. I know what angles I want to put the phone or the camera. I can already see it. So
Yeah.
that helps me execute the thoughts that I have,
Mm-hmm.
which it's kind of therapeutic in a sense. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a painter, I'm not a songwriter, I'm not an artist in terms of like singing and painting and
Mm-hmm.
drawing, but editing and putting your vision to life, I think that's where my creative brain kind of the creative juices flow.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us as adults
Mm-hmm.
to indulge in the things that we like. It's
Yeah.
not always that serious. Like life is not always that serious. Yes, you work, you do your adult things, you pay your insurance, you pay your health insurance, you do this. Okay, yeah. And then what?
Yeah.
Where's the fun? Where is the thing you enjoy? Do you like
Mm-hmm.
singing? Go sing. Do karaoke. Do singing videos, Do you like to draw? Get some art supplies. Do the thing that you like. You might not have the most time like you did when you were young, but you do make time for the things that you love. So I think it's these other adventures other than work, it's very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all need to dive into that part of ourselves more.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When you mentioned the bit about being creative and having your vision come to life and how good that feels, how fulfilling that is, it reminded me of something I read recently about how when you consumption actually drains you, but when you spend more time creating something, it actually energizes you. And so you're right. If you take some time to create something, you create videos or like you mentioned, even if you draw or paint or something like that, using that as a way to have a more fulfilling life. And also, I do think that it helps with your self-perception, how you see yourself and how you feel about yourself. Is that true for you?
Yes, I think so. I think it's not because we are made of like many different parts of ourselves. So I think we need to
Mm-hmm.
give parts some attention sometimes, basically. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. Lovely. And so, with making changes, sometimes, we would say, okay, yeah, go out there and make some changes and stuff like that. Are there any obstacles that you would have encountered even on this journey of, building a good work-life balance?
In the beginning, yes, but changing my place of employment was a major step in changing that.
Mm-hmm.
So from 2022 to now, I would say that the work-life balance has definitely improved. I am less tired overall, and I am more intentional now, most times, with what I do with my free time.
Mm-hmm.
Some days I just don't want to do anything, and I think we all have like where you just want to wake up late,
Yeah.
laze around the house, watch a few shows, you take a nap, and that's your day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're all allowed these types of days, as well as making intentional scheduling free time, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. And so for anybody who's listening, right, and like you, they might be doubting or questioning whether or not they should start to make those adjustments in terms of their work-life balance or their just life situation. What is some advice that you would give to people like that?
Okay, so I think the first thing is recognizing that, okay, how do you feel about the current situation that you're in, and what can realistically be done about it? So a lot of us, we realize that, okay, we want something to change, and we know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what that is,
Mm-hmm.
because it depends on, you're listening, you know what it is. So it is different things for different people. So for
Yeah.
me at the time, it was my job.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody else, it could be something else,
Yeah.
right? So first of all, recognizing and accepting to yourself, like, your truth.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you do want changed or adjusted or added? Like, for me, I wanted to add on content creation to my other things. So, okay, there was that. The second thing is to make small steps to get towards that. So, my first step, let's say I'll give myself as an example, to like really being consistent with the content creation, I got a new laptop. The old
Mm-hmm.
laptop, it was very laggy in terms of editing and so on. I couldn't really do much.
Mm-hmm.
The apps I used to get, they were glitching, and so I got a new computer. And then that was my first step into, like, hey, okay, I had a phone. I have a new phone now, but I had a phone. It wasn't the best quality, I would say, but I didn't care.
Right.
It's what you have at the time, and
Yes.
you just get started. So
Mm-hmm.
if you, like, let's say you want to change jobs, you want to, do something, apply for different
Mm-hmm.
jobs. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Research, see vacancies, apply. Even if they don't have vacancies, apply.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah.
So you take the little steps into doing what you want to do and to change the circumstance that you're in. Because there's most times there is something you can do.
Yeah.
So you just see the little baby steps, and then eventually you talk to other people who are, who can relate. Then some people might even give you better ideas than what you were thinking before, and that would help propel you to the next step, and then something else would follow, which would propel you to the next step. Eventually you might end up where you want to be.
Excellent. Good stuff. And yeah, I totally recommend that people strive to, I mean, just create a life that they enjoy, right? Of course, being responsible, yes.
Yeah.
Right? Being responsible. Because on the other side of that, yes, change could seem so daunting, but on the other side, there are really there's fulfillment, like you mentioned, and even more time to engage in things that you enjoy and even to spend time with people you love and care about.
Oh yes,
Right?
oh yes.
Yes,
Definitely that.
yes. Good
Definitely
stuff.
that.
Excellent. So, how can our listeners support you and your work and business?
Okay, so they can find me at on Instagram at Island Queen underscore 758, and on YouTube just search Sharna Henry. You should get my channel there.
Great.
I
Excellent.
guess you
So,
the link in the bio.
right. On the screen, right? Or both.
Oh, on the screen.
Good. Yes. Excellent. So thank you so much, Shana, for taking the time off because today would have been one of those days that you have time off so that you can even engage in something like this. Thank you for spending this time with us and for the contribution that you're making in your community.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye.